Hi, I'm Fairy Kim, and today I want to talk about. This was first of my new series about spirituality, and I want to talk about the universe, consciousness, um, basically the root of what I believe, the core of what I believe in, spiritually. A little bit of history first, I guess. I was raised Christian. My parents were Salvation Army actually, but I've been to churches before. It's funny how I hit on a metaphor which is more relevant to churches. But anyway, I to explain what I'm going to explain next. Because one of my experiences, I guess, more of as a teenager than during childhood. I think more as a teenager I got this impression. But I realised that when I went walking and sitting out in the fields in the village, the village I grew up in, just in nature, and just thinking deeply about and quite philosophically about what I think is real or not, about whether there's life after death, whether there's God or whatever. Just thinking these deep thoughts. I found more of a connection with the divine out there in nature than I ever did in a building, in a cold stone building, as I like to put it. But uh, that's been my experience. I don't really find God, I don't find a connection with the divine in a building with a bunch of people. I find it when I'm out by myself in nature. So that influenced me spiritually quite a lot. To kind of view nature as the realm of the divine. And in my Christian upbringing, you've got this idea of God and you've got this idea of Satan or the devil. Um, it was natural for me to then conclude that nature, that's God's domain. The world that we create as human beings and mess up so badly, that is Satan's domain. And that understanding probably explains why I ended up being the pagan pantheist that I am, I guess. Once I started questioning a lot of things about Christianity, I did start going down a pagan path, really. And I'm basically reaching out to a lot of different religious traditions because the Eastern traditions have been quite powerful influence on me as well. But yeah, God is nature, and I still have that view. Um, and when later in life, I kind of went atheist for a while. Um, just skeptical about everything, supernatural or spiritual or whatever. I mean, I would still say I don't believe in the supernatural, but I do use the word spirituality. Um, but I studied philosophy of mind. I studied philosophy in university and was very interested in particular in the question of consciousness and what consciousness is. Why do we have subjective experience of the world? Why we're not just I guess biological automatons who just process information without having any subjective experience about it. What is it that makes that subjective experience happen? That always struck me as a bit weird. So I was very interested in that when I was studying philosophy, the philosophy of mind. And and I kind of realized, as a lot of people do, um, but you can't really explain consciousness by any mechanism of the brain. Whatever mechanism of the brain you find out. I don't think you could really find a mechanism that means that there would be subjective experience. That would explain properly why there is subjective experience. Because whatever processing of information that's happening, you could also say that could just happen automatically. It doesn't necessarily result in conscious experience. Um, it's just a very complicated way of processing information that could just as conceivably happen without any conscious experience. I don't see how you can explain that this results in conscious experience. Because, but it's funny because whenever you talk about consciousness in this way, like trying to the difference between an awareness that isn't conscious and awareness that is conscious, is you often end up using the same term in different ways, like a double speak, Awareness, not awareness, but awareness. You do this all the time. It can be aware of things, But I'm not talking subjective awareness, just the mechanical process of being aware of something. And there's all this you come up with this time and time again. And I realized in the end there's something in that, that what seems to be a mystery isn't such a big mystery. Maybe there's something there that doesn't really need explaining. I've ended up in this weird situation where I'm like, you can't explain away a subjective experience by any processing that would happen in the brain. You can't explain it with that. But at the same time, there's no big mystery about consciousness. It's just what happens when it's just what happens. Like if you're aware of something and you're processing that information in such a way as to be aware of that other thing, then subjective conscious experience will result. So this is what I've come to the conclusion of. You can't explain it by any particular wiring in the brain. It's not conscious, and it is conscious because this wiring happens. But it is not really that surprising that when you're aware of something, you're aware of it. So it's just, if you look at it outside, you see the processing. If you're in the inside, being the one doing the processing, then you'll have subjective conscious awareness. Then I realized this exists on all levels, because if it's just the raw fact that something is becoming aware of something else by processing that information, then that happens whenever matter interacts with matter. You could say that matter's become aware of the other matter because it's been affected by it. It's just there are different levels of complexity of it. So that's where I came to the view that the universe is conscious. That we're all part of this connection, and that consciousness is connection. That's what consciousness is. It is things becoming aware of things. It is the connection. It is the flow of information. And that happens on different levels of complexity in all matter. And because it's a process of connection, it is correct to say, even though, a rock or whatever is a very simple level of consciousness to the point where it's pretty much non-conscious, but because all things are connected and all things impact one another, and that this process is the basic building blocks of consciousness as we understand it. It's just that consciousness as we understand it is a very complex version of it. That basically this flow of information, this consciousness happens in all things, and because it's a flow of connection, it is absolutely correct to say the universe is conscious. And we are, in our consciousness, the universe becoming aware of itself and being able to think and that's the thing. At our complex level, within the universe are human beings who are capable of thinking and feeling and coming up with very profound conceptual, philosophical realizations about stuff. And this is also the universe becoming aware of itself. It is growing as we grow. It is becoming aware as we become aware. And that's what I come to understand. I don't believe in a creator God. I don't believe something outside of our world created it. Although when I did believe in a creator God, this was part of my reasoning of how I got to the spiritual understanding I do now. That if God made the universe out of nothing, then what is the universe made of? God. Thus we're all part of God. That was an important aspect of me realizing that pantheism. But I don't believe in a creator God. I don't believe something outside made the universe. I believe the universe kind of emerged and grew and evolved and continues to grow and evolve. And things interact with each other, things change, and that's how things develop and evolve and progress. And when things interact with one another, they become aware of each other, and that's how the universe experiences itself and becomes aware. And this is the one conscious universe that grows and evolves all the time, and we are part of it. And that's what I believe. And that's the core nugget of my belief, basically. It is nature, it is the universe, it is the all. I will, in future videos talking about spirituality, get into the weeds of, the one God or many gods kind of stuff and all that. But for now, let me say that that is very lofty, conceptual, abstract. But we are, if you're going to get a use value out of trying to connect spiritually, which I think you can and you should, we are great apes, basically. We are social animals. We are storytelling animals. We navigate our way through life these days through music and film and TV, but back in the day by telling stories around the campfire. We are a storytelling, narrative-driven species, and we are a social species. And to get the most spiritually out of a spiritual experience, it can't be lofty and abstract. We need to personify it. We need to tell stories around it, and we need to have a personification of the divine in the form of deities. That's why we make gods and goddesses and deities. That's why we create these things. We need to personify it in order to connect with it. And I'm going to get into the weeds of whether it's best to have one or many of these in a future video. But I will say, if you wanted a symbolic representation of the entirety of the universe, of the complete cosmic wheel of destruction and creation that is all things, if you wanted a representation of all things, the entirety of this conscious universe that we're all part of, the dark and the light, the very physical and sexual, or the very lofty and abstract and cerebral, the male and the female, all things. The best representation of the all, if you want a personified representation of it, is Shiva from Hinduism. Which is why I may be a pagan, a pantheist, a monist, whatever other term you might use, but I guess I'm also a Shivite, because I believe Shiva is the best symbolic representation of the entirety of the divine, all of it. But yeah, this is the core nugget of my belief. It's nature, it's the universe, the one conscious universe, the all. That's what I believe in, when you get right down to the bottom of what I actually believe. So thanks for listening. There will be more of these spiritual ones, usually on the third Saturday of the month, but it's not so this time because I was life got in the way last time. I was actually struggling with the nicotine cravings as it happened. But anyway, stay tuned for next time. Next week I will be talking about music, which I am going to talk actually about black metal. So that'll be interesting. Okay, thanks, bye.